Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 442 of the No Sugarcoating Podcast. I am your host, Amber Romaniuk. How are you? How's your day? I hope you're having a good one. And all my Canadian friends and fellow citizens, I hope you had a great Canadian Thanksgiving. I know it's super early here, but it was really nice. Made a beautiful dinner and had a great time with the family over the last weekend. So that was really nice. So I have never actually talked about this, and I thought this would be a really good topic for today because this is something that used to drive me nuts when I was in my binge weight loss, obsessed with losing weight and then falling off. And then, as we go through all these diets and restriction and the all or nothing mentality and then bounce back into the swing of the binges and the emotional eating, we can do significant, oh my gosh, not permanent, temporary, keyword temporary damage, or really cause a lot of imbalance with our metabolism. However, I'm living proof that if I can go through years of binge eating, multiple nights a week, binging and purging, as well as emotional eating and compulsive eating and overeating, to where I am now, and my metabolism is a lot better, even though I had an underactive thyroid, that you can actually work on strengthening a suppressed metabolism through all these behaviors and stressors that your body may have been through. So today I want to talk about factors suppressing metabolism, how diets and emotional eating interfere because they really have a significant negative impact on our metabolism. And then what are things that you can start doing to start working on your metabolism? And so what you're going to hear me talk about later as we get into that third point is that there's short-term things you can do. And then there's the things that you have to work on building like a muscle that are going to take time to course correct depending on different factors that we're going to talk about today. So there's short-term things you can do and then things that are going to take longer. And this is where when we dive into things like hormone imbalances, emotional eating, binging and purging, these things take time to shift. However, the beauty of it is when you actually take the time to address the roots of your gut and hormone issues, your elevated inflammation, your high blood pressure, your blood sugar issues, that negative ego mind that's literally governing the way you behave and show up in your life. And so that's really dictating your physical, emotional, and energetic health. When you take those steps, plus the, beginner ways to start, you are going to see a whole new metabolism awaken, because I've experienced this. And it's so funny because I was saying this to a client earlier. She's like, oh, I'm tired and I've been resting. And I'm like, yeah, you've rested for 4 days after having a job where you were up almost through the middle of the night for years. It's going to take more time to shift. Right. And then, I have this conversation all the time with clients that are like, oh, I'm tired, but I have to go to the gym because I want to lose weight. And we have to break apart that narrative, because the more tired we are, the more we push ourselves, often the more exhausted we get. And that just makes everything worse. We just get more exhausted, messes with everything more. And you're going to hear me talk about that a bit today. But then I said, I feel you. And I used to be that way. And I sprained my foot 4 weeks ago. And I can tell you my foot is pretty much fully healed. And I'm so grateful because I rested. I surrendered. I didn't push it. I didn't go and do things to agitate it, like exercise. I rested. And I said to her, and I'll say this to all of you, when our hormones are in a pretty good state of balance, we have minimal inflammation, our gut health is in check, we have great tools to manage stressors. It doesn't mean stressors and discomfort and things are coming up. Trust me, I've had a lot of discomfort this year with different insecurities that I'm continuing to let go of, right? However, my tools and the way that I take care of myself has kept things in a pretty good check. And because of that, resting for 4 weeks with I went for one walk yesterday with hubby. Otherwise, nothing. I haven't gained a pound. I haven't my body's fine, right? I'm not worried about that, but it just goes to show you that when things are working properly internally, mind, body, soul, even if we have to rest due to an injury or a surgery or something that literally puts you on your butt, you can just surrender and truly take care of yourself and let yourself heal, rather than getting stressed out that everything's going to get messed up and to trying to grip control because you feel insecure with your body, your weight, and food, right? So I wanted to just share that because I've been there too. So a couple key reminders. The show notes for today's episode can be found at amberproof.ca/podcast/442 and in the show notes below if you're watching on YouTube. So if you're resonating with everything that I've been talking about, and then you're going through and listening to this episode and going, oh my gosh, I think I must have a thyroid issue or a high cortisol issue. I think I have these gut issues. I think I'm dealing with suppressed metabolism and I totally emotionally eat and I binge and I feel really vulnerable with food. And oh my gosh, there's so much temptation out in the stores. and I suck at making myself a priority, and I'm putting myself on the back burner, and I'm the people pleaser, and I don't know how I'm going to course correct all of this if I don't address the roots. If this is you and you're resonating with these podcasts, like I said last week, I am offering a beautiful opportunity for you to come and explore a journey with me one-on-one for private coaching. And I'm offering a beautiful savings for my 6-month, 1 year, and 4-month coaching program. So $2,000 for a year, $1,000 for 6 months, and $500 for 4 months. So if you want to secure one of those spots, you can email me at info@amberapproved.ca, subject line coaching savings or sale, and then we can connect and get you in for a body freedom consultation. I can give you the details and see if it feels like a fit. Or you can go to amberapproved.ca, schedule a consultation. You fill out the intake form, it's $50 USD, and then you pick your time, and then we connect and talk more about what's going on for you emotionally, physically, energetically, your symptoms, relationship with food, body image, mindset, and so much more. And then we talk about what the journey could look like, what's holding you back, how this may help clear you out of that and break through the wall so that you can get where you want to go. And then we can talk about the programs and answer your questions and dive in if it feels like a fit. So feel free to reach out if that is of interest to you. This is a powerful time to receive support. And I'm going to talk more about this next week. I think I'm going to do a bit of an energy, like kind of world energy update, because there's a lot of intense things going on in the world. And I know everyone has their different views, beliefs, and opinions, which everyone has the right to. But I think there's a lot of fear and like a lot of negative, heavy emotion. And I'm an empath and I can feel it sometimes. So I want to hopefully give some reassurance, shine some light on, and also share how each of us are on this individual journey. And there's so much we can all do to help ourselves through this time. So I'm probably going to do something like that next week. And then the last thing I want to remind you of, like I touched on last week, and I'll provide probably more information next week and probably do a bit of a rant on our Charter of Rights and Freedoms and how we all have that in whatever country that you live in or are supposed to. But there's some new updates coming out with Canadian, like, Radio Television Commission, and that they're going to be moving toward regulating podcasts, which means that if you comply, then you could be censored if you say something that the GOV doesn't like. And if you don't want to comply, then that may mean no longer streaming on iTunes and Spotify. So I will share more details next week. You shouldn't have to choose. However, the best thing you can do to make sure that you don't miss out on any episodes of this podcast after November 28th is to subscribe to the Body Freedom newsletter. You can go to amberapproved.ca, scroll down a little bit, and it'll say newsletter, or you can go right to the show notes at amberapproved.ca/podcast/442. There will be a link there to just click. I promise I don't spam. I will be dropping a little podcast like notification on Sundays to let you know that the new episode is out and send you right to listen on the website. And I'll also add a little tip in there of some kind of whatever the theme the podcast was. And I'm also might drop another cool little thing to give you guys some more value so that you can kind of listen to the podcast and take some notes. So you won't want to miss that Sunday podcast update. And then I usually drop like informative tip recommendation kind of things on Wednesdays. So you're going to get a lot of value and you're going to get really nurtured from the newsletter anyway. However, like I said, the best place to stay in touch and make sure you get everything, because I don't know exactly what's going to happen come end of November with this whole thing, is to make sure you're subscribed. Okay. So without further ado, let's dive into today's episode. Thank you for listening to me. There's a lot going on right now, and I just want to make sure you all have the lowdown. So there is a lot of things that can suppress the metabolism. And honestly, I'm not going to get into every single one of them because I could probably record a 3-hour podcast on just things that are suppressing the metabolism. Maybe I'll do like a video at some point and just focus on things that suppress, but I'm going to get into some of the things that are. I'm just making a note because I had just got an idea for something I want to add into the Sunday podcast newsletters to just bring extra value for you. Okay, so let's talk about these things. I see these things all the time. I innocently did a lot of these things when I was in my fight with body, food, all the stuff. So I totally can relate. If you're doing these things, don't be hard on yourself. You are where you are. It's all to plant seeds and help you build awareness. And then from here, we get to shift and change things. Okay, so let's dive into these different factors that are suppressing the metabolism. So this is one of the biggest ones I see when I first start working with clients. I would say about 55 to 60% of my clients are doing this when we first start working together. And it's so innocent because you'll just get it as I share. So skipping breakfast. So when we skip breakfast, this suppresses the metabolism because our thyroid and metabolism are very connected. It's like the furnace of the body, and it burns really hot and strong when we're eating regularly through the day and when we're having something right away to give us fuel, wake up our metabolism, wake up our digestive system, give us energy. And so what will happen when we skip breakfast is we suppress the metabolism, the thyroid gets sluggish, the metabolism gets sluggish, and then we lack producing our hunger hormone ghrelin, which is the hunger hormone that actually gives us a hunger signal and makes us feel hungry. So then we don't produce that hunger signal and we go, well, I'm not hungry. Why would I bother to eat? Right? I'm just curious, why don't you eat breakfast? Oh, because I'm not hungry. I don't really get hungry until 11 or 12 o'clock. And I go, okay, do you know why? And often they don't. And I didn't used to know either, right? We're not educated about any of this on a deep level, and unless you're going on a journey yourself or you've worked with somebody. So when we skip breakfast, we shut off and suppress the metabolism, the thyroid, we shut off ghrelin production, which is our hunger hormone to give us a hunger signal. And, the metabolism slows down. And then we assume because we're not hungry, we shouldn't eat. And that's actually sabotaging and making it worse. And then it sets us up for blood sugar issues later in the day, bigger spikes and crashes, lower energy, more sluggish digestion, constipation. And the more constipated we are, that can suppress the metabolism as well because you're reabsorbing toxins and hanging on to stuff. And then of course it can lead to later day, afternoon, or evening binges, emotional eating, and overeating, because of course your blood sugar is crashing, you haven't eaten enough, and your body's like, feed me, give me all the food right now. And then we overdo it, or it becomes an emotional eating, binge eating trigger. So skipping breakfast is not only one of the things that suppresses metabolism, I also see it as a very common emotional and binge eating trigger all the time. And what we start to realize is that there are so many things that cross over here that impact our hormones, which I'm going to touch on right away, that impact our relationship with food, our weight, our body image, our mindset. And like when you don't eat enough and your blood sugar's all over the place, you are hangry and irritable and agitated, and that's not fun either, right? It really can impact our mood, and that's not fun. So that's the first one. Second one, underactive thyroid or hypothyroid. This is the sluggish slowing down of the thyroid. So what I find usually happens here, I see this imbalance with about 80% of my clients, and about half of them haven't had it identified before we've come to work together and done proper hormone testing. It's like they've deep down known that there's something off with their body, or maybe even they know it's their thyroid, but the doctor's like, oh, you're fine. It's not that. Or they do testing and the doctor's like, oh, everything looks normal. But of course, if you've listened to me, you heard me talk about all the time that the ranges for quote unquote normal are far too big, and they're actually a lot smaller. And we can have underactive thyroid in the normal range because they keep making it bigger, which is ridiculous. So signs of underactive thyroid: hair thinning and hair loss, eyebrow thinning, cold hands and feet, weight gain, feels really hard to lose weight. It's just easy to gain, feeling really puffy, retaining a lot of water, brain fog, extreme fatigue first thing in the morning, but your energy gets better through the day. You don't get a hunger signal. You're not hungry, especially through the first half of the day, and you don't feel like yourself. You may also have irregular cycles. So I see this in so many of my clients when we first start working together. And some of the biggest things that contribute to this, and I have other episodes that fully go into the thyroid, so you can go and check them out. But are things like emotional eating, binging and purging, overbooked schedules, people pleasing, perfection, all or nothing mentalities, this negative ego self-talk that's like, you're not good enough, you're not doing enough, you need to do more, you need to lose weight, you'll never be good enough. That negative fight with the body because it produces a stress response, high stress levels, poor gut health, elevated inflammation, eating a lot of processed foods, not eating enough, poor sleep. Like there's so many things that impact the thyroid and honestly just impact all of this. So I had underactive thyroid, and mine was a result of going through binge eating and my whole food addiction, overeating, under eating and over exercising and going back and forth. That caused a lot of stress on my body over a few years. And then I cut out carbs and I didn't cut out carbs. I cut out fruit for a while, try and balance my digestion, which I don't suggest. And then I went into a phase of binge eating, and I was so exhausted, and it all messed up my thyroid big time. And for a couple of years, it really had an impact on me. And it wasn't until I took a more holistic route and started to naturally support my thyroid that things started to change. even if you already have a thyroid issue and you're on medication, or you have Hashimoto's or Graves or some kind of diagnosis, there's so much we can do to help regulate your thyroid. We have to just address the roots that are amplifying the thyroid imbalance. But I see it all the time. The body's always trying to heal. It's just that we by accidentally get in the way. So just rest assured that there's a lot we can do there to help with that. But the thyroid definitely will have an impact. So the next thing is diabetes. So when we have diabetes, we can have a more suppressed metabolism. That being said, I really believe that there's so much we can do to balance the body. So like, I don't believe anything is ever permanent. I believe we can always improve the quality of the health, reduce the symptoms. I think that don't ever like take something on that like it's permanent. I know people say, oh, your metabolism is dictated by your genetics and blah, 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 your age, and it's going to slow down as you age. And I'm like, that's all BS. Like, if we take on the same mentalities, habits, and behaviors as our families, well, then yeah, what's really going to change? And we may end up in the same boat that they are. But if we are willing to heal and repattern our minds and do our deeper work and address the root issues, nothing has to be the same. We don't have to repeat what our parents did. And the age thing is just such BS. Your body's always trying to heal. I've helped women from age 20 to almost 90, and we have regulated their hormones, balanced things out. And why? Will be because we've gotten the answers and we've addressed the root issues. Okay. So that is the key here, no matter what is going on. So your metabolism and your insulin are very connected. So of course, your metabolism refers to the chemical reaction in the body. It requires energy, and the amount of energy requires is different based on your different factors, right? And they keep them pretty vague, but I'm talking about your hormone health, your stress levels, your relationship with food, etc. And of course, with diabetes, it disrupts your body's use of the hormone called insulin, right? Which is your blood sugar. And this regulates your blood sugar. It shuttles glucose from your bloodstream to your tissues. And if left uncontrolled, of course, with diabetes, we can have really high blood sugar levels. So with this specific one, what normally happens is if we have an irregular amount of insulin, we have a completely different metabolic picture than for someone who doesn't have diabetes. So when you consume food, right, like carbohydrates, they're broken down. We start breaking them down in the mouth. We have salivary amylase. That's the digestive enzyme that starts breaking down your carbohydrates in the mouth. And then they enter the bloodstream in the form of the sugar called glucose. And your pancreas, bless your pancreas's heart for producing insulin and your digestive enzymes. It produces the insulin, though, which sends the glucose to your cells for energy. So people with diabetes either don't respond to insulin or don't produce enough, or both. So obviously with type 1, the body attacks and destroys the cells in the pancreas called beta cells, which produce the insulin. And that's usually diagnosed at more of a young age. And with type 2, it's food and stress play a huge role with this one. But essentially we have, right, this case where your body becomes insulin resistant. And this is where your cells stop responding rather to insulin, and your blood sugar remains elevated. So to compensate for insulin resistance, your pancreas produces more insulin, and that of course creates an overproduction. And then eventually the pancreas can get to the point where it doesn't produce enough insulin to lower your blood sugar efficiently. So when we have this elevated insulin, this can have a direct impact on our metabolism, because our blood sugar levels get higher and higher and higher. And it's hard for the body to use everything up. So this is where it's really important that we work on, like, I should do a whole other podcast on diabetes, especially type 2, but really working on regulating your blood sugar, what things are fueling high blood sugar, emotional eating, binge eating, eating a lot of processed food, using aspartame, not sleeping well, not drinking enough water. There's so many other things to look at other than like reducing your carbohydrate intake. But this can have an impact on metabolism. And there's so many other factors to look at. So stress obviously plays a role with suppressing the metabolism. Whether you are stressed about the world, you're stressed about your bank account, you're stressed about family stuff, you're stressed about work, job, career, business, relationships, like yourself, your weight, your body, your health, your symptoms, right? Because that is something that a lot of people can get stressed out about. Whatever your stressors are, if you're rating them really high, this can really impact your metabolism, because what happens is we have a cortisol spike, and cortisol is the stress hormone that you hear me talk about all the time. And it gets high in the body to help us work through this fight or flight, protect us from the danger that is not actually there, and then to move on. So the problem is with chronic stress, so many people have chronic stress and so much going on. The longer that the cortisol is high, the harder it is for the body to use insulin, and that slows metabolism down. So I often see high cortisol linked to also negatively interacting the thyroid, contributing to the insulin stuff with insulin resistance and diabetes. Cortisol issues can also make us feel brain fog, puffy, retain water, abdominal weight gain, sugar and salt cravings, extreme fatigue through the whole day, low sex drive, irregular cycles, irregular appetites, but usually we get more hungry and we crave more sugar and carbs when our cortisol's high, which can, of course, throw the blood sugar off. And we also don't sleep as well when we have high cortisol, especially if we have high cortisol at bedtime. That's trouble falling asleep, and high cortisol at bedtime are very linked together. So if you have trouble falling asleep, especially, or you're not sleeping well, likely there's probably a cortisol component or another hormone imbalance that is going on that is contributing to it. And that brings me to the next thing that can suppress the metabolism, which is poor sleep or lack thereof. If we're not sleeping enough, that will give us more of a stress response, spike inflammation, throw the blood sugar off, screw our appetite levels, trigger emotional eating. That's such a common emotional eating trigger because it triggers the I don't care mentality. I'll just want to eat whatever I want because I'm tired, right? So that's all linked to sluggish metabolism. Strict diets, right? Restrictive diets. If you don't eat enough, the metabolism slows down. If you are doing restrictive dieting and not eating enough and also doing intense exercise, the metabolism will slow down even more because the body needs to try and survive with less fuel. So the whole eat less and exercise more thing usually will sabotage people. And I find with really restrictive diets, HCG, where you're doing like 500 calories a day, 1,000 calories a day, 1,200 calories a day, like these are really restrictive starvation diets. And this is where it can temporarily damage and suppress the metabolism. Or when you're anything where you're not eating enough and you're counting points or any of that, or you're doing like the space food diet. Oh my gosh, I think it's simply protein and it's full of soy and all these GMO ingredients. And then as soon as you come off of it, you gain all the weight back and then some. It's because you're temporarily damaging your metabolism, and then it makes it so much easier for you to gain all the weight back and then more. So what I always encourage, instead of going on another diet, is to actually address and explore the roots of what is causing your body to hang on to protection. Why does she not feel safe? And there's emotional reasons, there's physical reasons, there's body image reasons, there's hormonal, emotional eating, energetic, like there's so many potential things that could be going on. So are you willing to explore that instead? And that's what I do with my clients all the time. And we don't need to restrict, we don't need diets. You can eat enough and feel safe and heal your relationship with food and your body, and see that it actually gets to be easy to help your body to feel safe and release the weight. And you don't have to do the restrictive diet because it doesn't work anyway. And it just does more harm than good. And I know we've just been so programmed and conditioned that this is the way, but it doesn't work. And we know it doesn't work. It's just that it's this comfort zone, this safety blanket, and actually addressing the roots in the beginning can feel a little more uncomfortable or a little more nerve-wracking. However, it's so freeing and rewarding when we really do that. So if you want to reach out and talk about support to overcome diet addiction, to overcome, continuing the restrictive diets because you don't trust your body and you don't trust yourself and you fear losing control with your weight and your body, even though what's really important is to instead heal your relationship with food and help you learn to trust your body, which is what I help my clients do all the time, right? We can work on that together, and I can help support you and give you reassurance and help you feel safe taking it at your pace while we make the changes. So that whole eat less, exercise more thing, it starts to do a number on our metabolism and our hormones and our mind, our mental health as well. So not drinking enough water can suppress the metabolism. So make sure you drink a lot of good quality water. Certain medications can suppress metabolism. Cutting carbohydrates, your body does need them to make insulin. And of course, like I've been talking about, this is a key hormone that is important for good metabolism in balanced amounts. Okay. Skipping meals, like I said, or waiting too long between meals to eat. So if you're waiting 8 hours, 6 hours, 5 hours between a meal, and I get it, sometimes innocently things come up and you didn't mean to do it. But if you're skipping meals, you're going, oh, I'm not going to eat till dinner because I'm too busy or whatever, like you are definitely suppressing your metabolism and increasing your chances of later in the evening binge eating, poor sleep, weight gain, and all kinds of other things. Insulin resistance as well can suppress metabolism, like I kind of touched on, but it's a condition where your body does not respond as it should to the insulin that your pancreas is producing. So I see women sometimes with PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, or high blood pressure, the underactive thyroid, the high cortisol, all of these can contribute to insulin resistance. So this is why it's never about going, well, I have insulin resistance. So what do I need to do what supplement do I need to take to just help my insulin? It's like, no, well, why do you have it? Or any of these imbalances for that matter, underactive thyroid, diabetes, cortisol issues, emotional eating. It's like, what are the root issues? What's fueling it? What created it in the first place? It didn't just come out of the blue. It didn't just happen for no reason. There are usually multiple things that are fueling these imbalances. Are you willing to go there and look at it? Because education is the key, and understanding this for yourself is key. And it's so great to help you understand what's going on. And that's one of the reasons I love recording this podcast every week, because we get to look at that. And that's one of the reasons I love supporting my clients, because it's like they feel so liberated and empowered working through these things and not being alone, and also finally getting the answers that a lot of them have been seeking for years or decades, right? It's like I'm the detective and we're going to help you figure out what's at the root. So of course, we're going to touch on this right away, but binge eating, overeating, emotional eating, also overdoing it with processed fast foods and junk food, of course, because it messes with the liver, the gallbladder, the insulin levels surge, right? And we've kind of touched on that already. So that all can really suppress the metabolism. The body is overwhelmed with a way too high of a food intake, a caloric intake, and a lot of these ingredients are hard for the body to break down, and therefore causes a lot of stress. And this all impacts our thyroid and suppresses all that jazz. And aspartame. So of course there's probably other things, but like I said, I want to be mindful of time. So aspartame, I know it's sold to us that it's a better sugar alternative than refined sugar, but it's actually worse. It was by accidentally formulated in a chemical experiment. And while it tastes sweeter than sugar, it is not a better sugar substitute. It spikes the blood sugar more than regular sugar. The body can't break it down. It hits the stomach. It's very stressful. The body's like, I can't break this down. It enters into the bloodstream. The body cannot at that time yet break it down, and so it stores it in the fat cells as formaldehyde, and it's like you're pickling yourself from the inside out, and that suppresses the metabolism. That's why I see and it's very addictive, and a lot of people struggle in the beginning to cut out aspartame, but it's very important to do so to help with your thyroid health, your cortisol, your gut health, your mood, your binge eating, because if your appetite levels are increased, consuming aspartame will increase your chance of binge eating or emotionally eating. So there's lots of better natural sugar substitutes for people with blood sugar and insulin issues. However, if you follow the money, the ones that are paying and endorsing, the Dietetic Associate or the Diabetes Association, all that are the Splenda and stuff, because it's all about the money. Follow the money always. So let's talk about how diets and emotional eating interfere with the metabolism. So what I notice, like I've already said, so with diets, we're usually restricting calories, we're not eating enough. And then of course the metabolism is like, oh, she must be in a famine. There must be no food around. So we're going to slow down the metabolism, slow everything down so she can survive and survive off of less. That means we're going to hang on to weight more easily. We're going to store everything as fat right now because she's not eating enough. So there must be a famine, right? So that's how the body responds to this. The body doesn't realize you're trying to diet to force weight loss, right? And anytime we try to force, the body will usually resist, and what we resist persists, and we'll get more of what we don't want. Because trying to force the body to do something the body doesn't want to do is going to just stress your body out and then stress you out emotionally. And then you're going to be pissed at your body because you couldn't lose the weight, when it's not about force. It's about addressing what is at the roots. Okay. You always hear me talk about this in the podcast. What is at the roots? So food for thought. That's a great thing to journal on. And as you hear me go through all these podcasts, I'm always sprinkling different questions for reflection. right? So pull out your journal a little bit, reflect. This will help you build awareness. Awareness is going to help you take next steps to deal with whatever is going on for you. Also, sometimes I drop little visualizations in, stop and do those. It's going to help you take your power back. And that's one of the things that's going to help you deal with these things that are going on. So that's what happens when we diet, right? And then what happens when we get triggered emotionally, and then we're like, I had a bad day. I need a reward. This thing stressed me out. This thing didn't go good. I'm tired. I don't care. I just want to eat whatever I want. And then you binge or you emotionally eat. And now you're overeating and you already have a sluggish metabolism. And that means when you overindulge and you emotionally eat, you're just going to store everything even more easily because you're already in this slow down mode. And then you panic and you get upset, right? And this all spikes your cortisol levels, which I talked about earlier. And then it messes with your insulin. And then you have more inflammation because you've consumed all these more inflammatory foods and your body's stressed out. And then all of a sudden your thyroid's getting suppressed and it's slowing down your metabolism even more. And then you're panicked and you get on the scale and you see you've gained weight and then you freak out even more. And then you go online and you Google fastest ways to lose weight, best diets, fast weight loss. And you pull out your credit card and you impulsively buy that thing because there's a couple success stories where, you know, how they like purposefully like push their stomach out really far to make it look like they've gained a bunch of weight, and then in the after picture like they're just fully sucking it in and like nothing's actually happened. That's like the sneaky shady side of deceptive marketing. But then you buy it because you're feeling so insecure and so desperate. You're like, whatever will do, instead of addressing the roots. And then you stay in the cycle, and with years and decades of being in the cycle, you keep suppressing your metabolism, you keep negatively impacting your hormones and gut health, you keep feeling inflammation. And this takes a massive hit on your confidence, on your belief in yourself, and lack, trust and lack thereof of trust that you have with your body. And you keep fighting with your body, even though your body's not trying to fight you, your body's not out to get you, your body unconditionally loves you. It's just that you keep putting things in the way by accident because of what you've been taught. We haven't been properly taught and educated on how to treat our bodies, how to take care of ourselves emotionally, physically, and energetically, how to address the root issues of our symptoms, our negative self-talk, our unworthiness, our, emotional eating, etc. We haven't been taught any of that. So then, of course, what ends up happening is we just keep going back to the same old diets, exercise, eat less, exercise more. And then we just lose more confidence when nothing is working and we feel like we're losing control. And part of that is because we're not actually addressing the roots. We want to actually address the roots and probably take a more holistic approach. And we can blend that with things you're already doing. However, be willing to try something different and step out of your comfort zone, because that's usually required. If you've been doing the same thing for years or decades and nothing is working or it's just getting worse, I really encourage you to reach out for support. Because if it hasn't changed by now, is what you're still doing really actually going to work? Can you get honest with yourself? Can you truly get honest with yourself? Because you'll thank yourself for getting out of your comfort zone and actually going to something that's going to help you. Okay. So this whole cycle suppresses your metabolism. It messes with your hormones. It messes with your insulin. It messes with your stress levels. So many things. And when we're in all or nothing mentality with food in our bodies and with diets and restriction and then overdoing it, it's doing a number on our metabolism. And it doesn't matter then how clean you try to eat or how much exercise you try to do. That's why you can't lose the weight, because it's so much deeper than eating clean and exercise. And if we're over exercising, that will suppress the metabolism too. Because again, the body's in this deficit and she's like, holy moly, like I can't keep up. I'm trying to help you function, but you're burning through the fuel way faster than you're giving it to me. So this cycle has a massive impact on our metabolism. There's a lot here. It is complex. Our health is complex. Our mindset's complex. Our relationship with food and our bodies is complex. So are you willing to go deeper? Are you? And if you're hesitant, why? And if you're resistant, what is it costing you to keep in the cycle of using restrictive diets and over-exercising, or using exercise and diets to try and have control with your weight, even though you're losing control, even though it's not working, even though nothing is getting better? What is it costing you financially? What is it costing you emotionally, physically, with your health, with your relationships, the way you do or don't show up in the world? What is it costing you to not address the roots and instead stay in this comfort zone of suffering just because it's familiar? I can guarantee you the other way is way better, where you address the roots, you get support, you get accountability, and you get to work toward creating this food and body freedom. So if you want to take advantage of the coaching savings and you want to reach out and talk about going on a journey together, you know what to do. amberapproved.ca, schedule a consultation, or email info@amberapproved.ca, subject line coaching savings. Okay, so now how do we start to boost our metabolism? So like I said earlier, there are like short-term things we can do and add in right away. And then there's the longer-term work, the longer-term steps to take, which is doing the deeper work, doing the deeper healing. Okay. I know we've been conditioned, people, quick fixes, but you cannot quick fix your way out of emotional eating, binging and purging. You can't quick fix your way out of building your worth and self-love. You can't quick fix your way out of overcoming people-pleasing, perfection, and all or nothing mentalities. You can't quick fix your way over learning how to take your power back from your ego. You cannot quick fix your way out of thyroid, cortisol, and hormone and gut imbalances or weight loss. True helping the body to feel safe so she can release protection at her own pace. You cannot quick fix your way out of any part of this journey if you really want to heal and gain the freedom you seek. You may gain a little temporary relief, but then it all comes back and you have to deal with it all over again with the quick fixes. So are you willing to actually go deeper? Okay. So how do we start boosting metabolism? Okay. Well, we want to work on reducing and making sure our blood pressure levels are stable. And all the things I've been talking about fuel high blood pressure. So if you have high inflammation, you're a sugar addict, you're eating a lot of processed foods, you're emotionally eating, binge eating, overbooked, high stress, all of that can fuel high blood pressure. Okay. It's not salt. It's all these other things. Making sure that we can actually regulate your blood sugar, right? So I guess I'm going into long-term things. Let me back up and go to short-term things. So number one, drink enough water, 68 ounces, 2 liters plus a day. Good quality water and hydration are very important. Work on your sleep hygiene. So pick one thing or two things at most and start picking away. Sleep hygiene, getting enough sleep. 8 hours is optimal. Being asleep before 11 p.m., which is optimal hormone balance time, is important. You want your metabolism to get better and your hormones to balance. Being a night owl does not really match very good. But if you can, counter and go to like 1 day a week, that would be a good shift, but do it slowly. Eating breakfast, starting to eat within 30 to 45 minutes of waking, something really small. And even if you have to have like a second breakfast, but starting with something small to wake up your metabolism, get your digestion going, have a good bowel movement, get energy going. Eating regularly through the day, ideally no more than 3 hours between meals. Have a mid-morning or mid-afternoon snack if you have to. Stress reduction, start bringing in a self-care practice, breath, meditation, tapping, journaling, walk, stretching, like whatever it is for you. I know everyone has different preferences. That's fine. You want to come and strengthen your self-care routine or really learn a lot of different ways to journal, breathe, meditate, what EFT tapping is and a lot more, come and join the Body Freedom membership. Go to amberapproved.ca. It's right there. Click online programs and you'll be able to learn more. But it's a really great space to come if you want to just put your toe in the water. Right? So we can add in some foods as well that help boost the metabolism, but only pick things that you like. So cinnamon's great, green tea, but a lot of people have high cortisol, so I don't suggest because of the caffeine. Ginger, I love. Berries, I love. Your cayenne and spicy peppers, avocados, garlic, broccoli, grapefruits. These things can really help with metabolism. I personally love to put cinnamon and berries in my smoothie in the morning, not because they boost metabolism. That kind of was an afterthought, but because they're really good for the blood sugar. Protein, animal proteins are also great for the metabolism as well. So you could make sure that you're having proteins with each meal. And of course, fats with each meal as well, as that is important. But if you're in food fears and you're afraid of, eating enough and all that, get support and coaching for that, because this is like lifestyle changes and changes that are going to take time, and you building trust and confidence and faith. And we don't want you to push yourself into something that you're going to really stress about. Okay. So those are some of the things that you can start with working on yourself. And then where I really encourage getting support is to get hormone testing done and to have someone properly, thoroughly, holistically review the results with you. I always thoroughly go through with my clients, explain what's going on, why, what are the symptoms of these things, and then what are the natural things like foods, tea, spices, supplements, and beyond. Might have to have a rant about supplements here in Canada too. The GLV here in Canada is sure doing a number on us right now. I don't think it's going to stick, but yeah, I'll share my thoughts next week. But there's so many things we can do with foods, tea, spices, supplements, and self-care nervous system practices to help regulate and balance the hormones. Even if you already have an underactive thyroid or Hashimoto's, like I was saying earlier, there's so much we can do to help improve and reduce your symptoms. Okay. I have underactive thyroid. It's not an issue for me. In fact, back in February, I think I cleared a load of inflammation and my thyroid started functioning even better. And I was taking my like thyroid vitamin and my desiccated thyroid and a kelp drop. And then I started to get overactive and like really anxiety. It's like, oh my gosh, I don't think I need this much thyroid support anymore. So I had to stop everything for a couple of weeks and let my thyroid regulate. But then I essentially am just to my, I don't need the kelp drops anymore and the thyroid vitamin. I'm just taking my desiccated. And that felt really good, right? So the body is always healing. We want to work on gut health. We want to work on lowering inflammation. And to me, one of the biggest things is the mindset. So working on that ego mindset, that negative self-talk, that unworthiness, that not feeling good enough, tying your worth to how much you do or the number on the scale instead of it being a feeling in the moment. That is so important to work on. I do that coaching with my clients all the time, and it's taken time to push you into this unworthiness and insecurity. It's going to take time to shift, but we can use different tools and supports and the coaching to help you take your power back and reconnect to this worthiness that is inside of you and this confidence. Also, what really governs the self-sabotage with food is the mind. So we also want to work on identifying and overcoming your emotional eating, binging and purging. What are your triggers, right? What is fueling you to want to keep using food as a sabotage? Right? Where does that all come from? And what are tools and supports that we can integrate to help you identify and overcome the triggers and then clear out the self-sabotage with food? That's going to significantly improve your metabolism and your hormone health and your gut health and so much more because you're not in the cycle of hurting yourself with food anymore. So, and then there's of course overcoming the weight loss, like, the diets and the diet addiction and like, clearing up the diet and food rules and the food fears. So there's a lot of emotional mindset work we do while we're supporting the physical body. And then for some of you sensitive souls that are empaths and you're very tapped into your intuition, we can also make sure that you feel safe managing energy and have really good boundaries, right? But people pleasing, perfection, all or nothing mentalities, proving, I have to prove to the world that I'm good enough because deep down inside, I don't feel good enough. All of that is tied to this. So we really want to make sure that we address the root issues. And that's what I'm here to help you do. So some shorter term things and some longer term things. What are your biggest takeaways? Feel free to always email me or send me a DM on Instagram if you want to share anything that you're taking away. And how would it feel for you to have this optimal metabolism, to work on these root issues, to overcome the emotional eating or binges, to let go of needing to force your body to lose weight and actually work on helping her to feel safe by addressing the root issues like the hormone, emotional eating, gut issues, learning to love yourself and feel confident and trust your body. I think learning to trust your body and trust yourself is one of the most priceless gifts you can give yourself because you feel unstoppable when you get into that space. You really do. So, what would that feel like? And what would it feel like if you started working on it now? So like I said earlier, the show notes for today's episode can be found at amberapproved.ca/podcast/442. If you have any questions about coaching support, you can email info@amberapproved.ca as well as schedule a consultation at amberapproved.ca. If you're wondering if you're struggling with emotional eating, you can also go to amberapproved.ca and take the free emotional eating quiz, learn more about body freedom, read success stories, and of course, listen to the podcast. It is the best place for you to listen to the podcast is at amberapproved.ca/podcast, because regardless of what the GOV here in Canada decides to do with censorship and all the jazz, my website will be there. So, as I always say, there's no better time than the present to take action on your health, your healing, overcoming self-sabotage with food, and so much more. So take action now. I'm cheering you on, and I'm sending you so much love, and I hope you have a beautiful day, a great week, and I will look forward to sharing a whole new episode with all of you beautiful souls next Sunday. Take care.